Hi there, everybody. Good to see you. Welcome to Beetle Brad's channel. I'm glad you came back to watch some more videos. I've got a great one in store for you today. Let me scoot in my chair a little better here. Today I've got a great one for you today. Today I'm talking about Mr. Pete Best, who was in the Beatles before Ringo Starr. Yes. So I've got a lot to cover, a lot to discuss. So what do you say we get started talking about Pete Best, who was born November 24th, 1941. So Ringo took his place, like I said, but we're going to be talking about Pete Best. And we're going to start off with this album, which is a good album. I like this album. It's really vocally a very nice album. I'm going to just shoot through a lot of these albums, not really planning on doing a full discussion about every single album. What my intention to do for this discussion is to kind of open up your eyes and to change your mind and thoughts about Pete Best. To maybe go out and buy a Pete Best album or CD. Or to maybe listen to him on Spotify or one of the other downloads where you can listen to. So I'm kind of branching your mind out just a little bit to make you think a little bit about Pete Best. So that was my first album. This is a second album. This is good as well. This has got a lot of great tracks on it. Great picture of the lads. See, and it's really great because I like the way they even put their names down below here so you kind of get an idea who everybody is of John, George, Paul, and Pete. So there you go. Kind of lists them there. I like that. That's great. Good album as well. Pete Best drumming. Pete is a little bit different than Ringo in his style and his delivery of his drumming. There's not an awful lot of big difference between Pete and Ringo Starr, I don't think. I've got a lot of stuff by Pete, and of course got a lot of stuff by Ringo Starr. Then this album that's up next. I think Pete is actually quite a good drummer. Personally, I think part of the problem with Pete Best was he was very quiet, very shy, very intimidated, and very moody. And John and Paul didn't really care for a lot of that. Next album, which is the same album, but this is a 180 gram version. And let's see, over here's your song listings. So not only was Pete kind of moody and grumpy and all that kind of stuff, personally, I kind of think Paul McCartney was a little intimidated by Pete. Pete kind of had a tendency in the Cavern Club to get the girls more than Paul did. So I think Paul was a little bit intimidated by Pete Best. Just my opinion of what I'm thinking, you know. You may not agree with me, like I said. Don't want you commenting and, you know, bawling me out or something crazy. Just my opinion. This is a great DVD. Real good early history for those of you who are not too familiar with Pete Best or the early days of the Beatles. This is a great way to get started into kind of learning a little bit more about them. This DVD has been out for several years now. So you really probably could find this relatively pretty cheap. And it's really quite good. Quite good. Great documentary. Then, to go out on an edge a little bit, this is a Beatles bootleg. This is I really like this bootleg a lot. They could release this and I would be thrilled. Johnny and the Moondogs. I couldn't think of the title offhand. Johnny and the Moondogs, which is kind of an earlier version of what they called themselves. It was called Johnny and the Moondogs and the Nurk Twins and all kinds of different phasings before they settled on the Beatles. But I'm not getting into Johnny and the Moondogs at all. But just a terrific picture of Pete there, as you can see, with the lads. This is a bootleg. There is the song listings. A lot of this has been released, but in the early days of bootlegging, this was a very hard album to get and a very hard album to get the songs on this. But the songs on this is terrific. If you run across this on CD, which is now on CD and vinyl, I highly recommend that. That's a great one. And then this is kind of music of Pete Best. This is music. This is a picture disc. It's the same on both sides. It's got music and a interview as well. That's kind of neat. This is a great picture of him in a picture disc. I apologize, I'm going a little fast. I've got a lot to cover. So Pete Best was definitely ousted by the Beatles themselves. They didn't want to do it, so they actually talked Brian Epstein, their manager, for those of you who don't know, and that's okay if you don't. This is the way we learn. Brian Epstein, who was their manager, like I was saying, the Beatles coached them into getting. I mean, Pete went into the office. Basically, Brian Epstein called Pete into the office. Is what I was trying to say. Got my words all mixed up. And so Brian Epstein broke the news of saying that he didn't want, the boys don't want you in the band anymore. They kind of chosen Ringo Starr to carry on in the band. And Pete was crushed because he really felt as if the band was going well, things were going great and all that kind of stuff, and didn't really have a clue that he was getting ready to be ousted. And this is in getting towards the whole time of getting ready for the Beatles to really explode. So Pete was never a part of all of that. And Pete kind of got to sit back and watch all of this take place. I could not imagine being kicked out of the world's biggest band at that time, just, the Beatles, and becoming the biggest band in the world, and sitting back and watching the telly in the UK and watching them go all over the world and meeting everybody and concerts and albums, and here's Pete Best and he's just not a part of it. I would imagine it would have been horrible. So I do feel sorry for Pete. It's kind of a sad way Pete Best got kicked out. But then I want to show this Beatles album with Pete Best, and you're saying, Beatle Brad, that's not a Pete Best album. You are correct. This is Sgt Pepper. But the exciting, cool thing about this is, a little story for you. This is the insert, the picture of John, Paul, George, and Ringo. But if you look at this across here, they are wearing medals that Pete Best's mom gave gave John Lennon. And John Lennon ended up wearing the medals and giving the other lads the medals for the Sgt. Pepper inner thing. So that was kind of a tie-in with Pete Best, that they still were a part of all of that. And the mom giving the medals to him. Sorry, kind of moved something there. So that's kind of neat. I mean, it's kind of sad. Here's Pete Best doing the best he can. Excuse the pun. And ends up being out of the band, and still another slap in the face is Sgt. Pepper, which is regarded as one of the best albums in the world. I mean, not by Beatles, but I mean it's regarded as one of the best rock anthem albums. And those medals are all on the jackets of each one of them, and that must have been horrible to dealt with too. This is a very good book. A lot of pictures in here about Pete Best. A lot of good pictures in here I've marked so I could show you some good pictures. I certainly won't go through every one of them because it's just time won't allow, and I don't want to take up too much time. This is the leather outfit that Pete wore during the Beatle times. It's kind of neat. And like the first album I showed you, it's another picture of them in that one as well. I got another picture here to show you. These are really cool. I like all four of these, so I'm just gonna show you all of these pictures. But this is a great book. If you don't have this one, it's a very, very good in the beginning kind of book of the Beatles. Great picture here of them. A lot of informative, interesting things that are being said. And hopefully you remember what I was saying about the Sgt. Pepper pins. Here they are again. The medals. I couldn't think of the word. I'm just lost of phrases of words today. But anyway, the medals. The whole discussion about it, which is kind of neat, kind of great. And then this is a picture of where they performed. And they used to perform in the basement of his mom's house. So that's kind of a in the basement picture of there. That's pretty cool. And another picture. I won't show you too many more because I know we're running on time here. But it's a great book, like I said. Very informative, very, very interesting stuff, as you can see. Here's a very, very early picture of Pete. So if you get a chance, pick up this book. Nice book. Great book. There's the back of front. There's the back. Also, Pete Best got a lot of credits and a lot of good things. He was in the anthology. Finally, Pete Best got some recognition for being in the first part of the anthology, the first album. There's some listings and stuff there. But where I'm going with this is, there's the picture I showed you before of John, George, Paul, and there was Pete, but his picture was torn, and there's Ringo. So this was kind of almost like a slap in the face to Pete Best. Once again, they slap him again during this time of the anthology. But Pete Best put out a CD, and there is the picture. This is a fairly 2000. My mind slips, so I apologize. I can't think of this. Came out maybe 2005, perhaps. But this is the picture that was supposed to go into this. Sorry, I'm kind of flipping around here. That was supposed to go into that picture. So see how it's missing? And this is the actual picture that was supposed to go into the anthology. So kind of a great, interesting thing. Very good CD. This is very, very Beatle-y, this CD of Pete Best. It's a great CD. Great CD. I really enjoy this, and it's very Beatle-y. And also for my rare stuff, this is a set of Beatles bubblegum cards, limited edition, with Pete Best. See if I can do this. So here's Pete Best cards. Here's the backing. Can I get an idea? But these are bubblegum cards, like I said, Pete Best cards. Kind of neat, aren't they? Yep. So that's pretty cool. You get a lot of a lot of neat stuff, and those cards are pretty cool, pretty rare. So you may say, Beatle Brad, why are we talking about Pete Best? It's just a general conversation on the drummer from the Beatles. He's gone. He's over. Yes, I know. Pete Best is gone. He's over. He's no longer in the Beatles. Ringo Starr took his place. Yes. But today, being August 15th, 2018, so what's that date have to do with the Beatles? Yesterday, being August 14th, 1962, Ringo replaced Pete Best. Actually, Pete Best was canned that day. He was let go by Brian Epstein. So that is where I'm going, is Pete Best was let go yesterday in 1962 and was no longer a Beatle. So I'm kind of giving a little bit of a tribute to Pete Best and kind of sharing a little bit of moments and all of that of talking to you and sharing with you about Pete Best. So let me end with one of the songs off this new CD, or his newest CD that he has. Great album. But anyway, so I'm going to end with Pete Best. This is very Beatle-y, almost like a George Harrison sitar kind of ending, beginning of the song. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to my Pete Best, my whole thing with him. Hope you enjoyed it. So, and as I say on my channel, I am out of here. Take care, everybody. See ya.